I want to welcome you to Answers for Today. I'm so glad to be with you. I have my good friend Chad here, Chad Stewart. He's written a amazing book. I want to get it right out in front of you right away. The title is Britfield and the Lost Crown. We're going to talk about the importance of this book here in a moment and really, I believe, how it can impact our youth. One of the things that we get questions about so often sent to us is how can I reach my kids, especially the middle-aged kids. They're getting lost in the world of the internet, the phones, the cell phone, and I get it. It's hard, and we have this great opportunity to bring our kids back to reading and hopefully to inspire their lives. And Chad, first of all, welcome to the program.
Oh, great. Thank you, Terry. Thanks for having me here.
First of all, give us a little bit of your background. I know now that you're this tremendous author, but before you got to that point, what were you doing?
Yeah, sure. So originally born in Newport Beach, California. I was back east in New England for about 16 years, if you can imagine, doing undergraduate and graduate work. Worked in banking and investment for a while, but I always had the creative spirit. I always liked writing. People often ask me, when did you know you wanted to be a writer? And
yes.
I probably honed it in when I was 12. And it was sixth grade. It was a class that we had, and we had a writing assignment. We had to write a book, and not a book, but like maybe 25, 30 pages. But oh my gosh, what do you do? And so that was my first story, my first book, and I don't think it ever left me. That idea of being able to express, to create, to write scenes, and to have dialogue, and to do all of that. And I still have the original book, and it's really cool. I was a big James Bond fan back then, as I am now, and it was called. I named it James Bond: Eat Your Heart Out. And I at 12 played a secret agent for the British, and it was like this whole adventure. And it's so funny because you could trace it full circle. Here I am, like 38 years later, and I've almost repeated it, like that theme and that idea and the fast pace and the adventure and the mystery. So
as you grew in your career, that didn't. Your heart was still burning to be able to write.
Yeah, I always loved writing. I loved creativity. From 18 on, I started writing scripts. I was really into script writing because I love movies, and so through script writing, I really learned the structure of writing. And it wasn't fun for me anymore, and which is why I switched to sort of your novel format. Because in script writing, it's very, very specific. It's every page is a minute. So if you have a 90-minute film, you have 90 pages. You never have more than 3 lines of description. And it's very, very, very concise. And so sometimes you want to express yourself, or you want to kind of open up the scene, or you want to direct it, or he walks in and he does this. And I remember when I was writing my first script, and I had professionals that were helping me, proof it, and I'd have like a song that's playing in the background, and they say, no, the producer picks the song, and then I'd have some direction, in it, and they go, no, the director will direct the actors, and it's just like, for crying out loud, it's like,
Well,
so
what do I do?
Yeah, exactly. So it really taught me, but it did teach me to be very, very concise. The 3-act structure, which is what Britfield's based on. It's based on the 3-act structure. It's extremely well structured, and it just moves fast. It's at 384 pages, which is a good-sized book, and yet we've had 12-year-olds that have read it in 5 hours, and to me, that's the best.
I guess from your writing, why did you target the middle-aged rather than writing novels for adults and all that? What was your passion behind writing this book?
Yeah, and that's a great question. It's interesting. I was just on a panel of authors Saturday because I was at the Festival of Books in Liberty Station, which was kind of fun. And one of the questions was, why that audience, and is it harder? And I actually think it's a lot harder as a writer to write for middle grade or young adult than it would be for adult because there's certain parameters in place. There's certain things that you want to do. You don't want to sort of talk down to them, but you also don't want to over challenge them.
Yes.
And so I am extremely careful in the words I use, the language that I use. I mean, of course, the language, but I mean as far as the words or not too complex of the words, but enough that sometimes you have a stretch, or you could put an actual adjective or adverb that's in there that they might not quite know, but they'd know with the scene and be so it's a kind of a learning thing, but it is a very, very delicate balancing match.
Because really, when you talk about middle school kids, they don't want to be called kids.
No.
But they're not they're not adults yet.
No.
So you have a challenge to try to get them right where they're at, where you can challenge them through your writing, and you'll be able to find a style that's starting to capture their eyes to be able to write it.
I just aimed for having fun, and that's when the idea came to me 10 years ago for Britfield. And just as a kind of a backstory, I was in a boring seminar. I was in New England, and I was kind of started to drift a bit. And I started to doodle, and I literally doodled. I doodled a little circle, 3 lines, a box for a basket. I put a little boy and a girl in it, and I call that the boy and the balloon. And this is literally how this whole thing, after 10 years, I had the idea 10 years ago, 4 years to write it, 2,500 hours to edit. But that's where the whole thing came from. And I thought, gosh, that's interesting. What a fun story. So Tom and Sarah, these 2 orphans that live at this horrible orphanage called Weatherly up in Yorkshire, England. I'll base it in England. And they've been at this miserable place for years. And this is the year they escape, and they commandeer a hot air balloon and fly throughout England. And I thought, that's the premise.
So that's the hot air balloon. I'll put it up on the back screen so you can see it also. What he's talking about here in the beginning of this book.
But yeah, so just I had fun writing it. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of discipline, but it's a fun story. It's a fast-paced story. You don't know where it's going. If someone were to ask me what's the core value of the book, why are you writing it, and I would say family first and foremost. It's all about family, the importance of family, and the different parameters of family. So you sort of have these orphans, Tom and Sarah, but it's the family and the knitting together of the other orphans, and how they all look out for each other, how they all help each other. It's the search for Tom's potential family, that they might still be alive. There's this royal thread that comes through it. They eventually meet Professor Hainsworth, which is this grumpy, single-man, professor at Oxford. Doesn't have time for anyone, and something touches his heart, and he wants to help these 2 kids. And so now you have this father figure, that comes in, and so there's that kind of relationship with the family. There's all the friends and people that they meet along the way that give them a boost, or give them a place to stay, or give them a meal. And it's got all that kind of amazing sort of family friendship, and then faith is just one of the major themes through the whole thing.
So you have Britfield.com. I'll put that down there for you guys to start writing it down, because you'll want to do that so you can not only take a look at all things that Chad will be talking about, but you also, if you want to purchase the book, I'd like to get there right now to you. Where could they go to purchase the book?
Yeah, we're on Amazon right now, which is great. So you can actually get a hardcover, softcover, ebook, and audiobook. We actually have our audiobook. And so we hired, like 4 months ago, we hired an award-nominated British voice talent, and he does the entire audiobook, and he does all the voices and all the characters, and it's amazing. And so we've already won over 10 awards. Just last week, we won another first place national award for juvenile fiction. We won 2 international awards for the book so far, and we've just now launching it in August, so it's exciting.
So you talked about what's at the heart of it, or the backbone of it is friendship, family, loyalty, and courage.
Sure.
Those are all very strong, really, traits are really to pass on to the middle school kids, that a lot of them don't have that. They don't have a family structure. They're not learning these things. And so some way you weave that in throughout your writing then, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it starts first off, yeah.
And for us as believers, Christians, if you're watching that, that's why I'm so excited, because certainly we see that in the life of young David, where he was all that, and how important it was for his life, and it's so important for us to pass that on to our family and kids. And so I would really encourage you to get your kids to read I'm looking forward to reading this book myself. Forget about the kids; it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And so. You're going out, how you're letting the school systems know about it. I'm very curious about that, especially the public schools. Are they receptive to the book?
Yeah, sure. So, we're really, our audience is a mainstream audience. So, because anyone can read the book, which is great. And you kind of mentioned about adults, but actually our youngest reader has been 7. Our oldest reader is 93 years old. We had an 87-year-old retired doctor that read it in 5 hours and loved it. And so it's really kind of transitioning over to everyone, because it's just a fun, packed story. And one of my pitches to mothers is what I'd say is it's a fast-paced adventure novel that your son or daughter would love to read. We've had parents that have come to us and said, my son's not a reader, or my daughter's not a reader, and I'm like, just give them Britfield, see what they think. And then like within 24 hours, I get a text, and they're on the couch into page 100, and they're like, I don't know what you did, but he loves it. It's based on family values, and it's an educational book. And so you learn geography, history, architecture, literature, culture, all of this is packed in the book. So as kids are reading it, your 12-year-old's going to read it, love it, but he's actually being educated and learning a lot of things about it. So it's kind of cool. But how we're getting into the schools is we have a passion for education. We have a passion for creativity. Creativity is such an important skill because it defines us. As far as I'm concerned, creativity is the gift that God has given all of us. And some of us might not feel creative, but we all are creative. We all have that creative gift. And creativity is not just in the arts. You think about creativity, you think about writing, or you think about art, and creativity is in everything. It's creativity is in engineering, creativity is in economics, it's in mathematics, it's in science. Creativity is in all those fields. And so we're leading and we're coming in as an award-winning author, but we're coming into these schools, like even public schools, to give a presentation on creativity. And so it's great. And I think about 50 to 60% of all the schools we do are public schools. And we will have anywhere from 100 to 200 students packed in an assembly for an hour.
And they listen to you, or did they kind of squirm?
No, and they're wonderful because trust me, it's like I've done it enough and everything. But we've got a great pitch deck, a 50 slide pitch deck, and that has transitioned, right? Because you know me from college, so it's like the first one kind of had some stats and some quotes, and it was like, whoa, way too much.
The kids can't
pictures, right? So a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we have this wonderful pitch deck with all these cool pictures. So I'm talking about creativity. I'll talk about Toy Story, what child doesn't love the movie Toy Story, but I talk about Pixar, and I talk about the creation of that company, how they had an idea, no one believed in their idea, how long it took them, 15 years from concept to actually getting the first movie out there. They were rejected. Even George Lucas purchased the company for 2 years, didn't know what to do with it, and finally Steve Jobs walks in and says, this is kind of cool, I think I can do something with it, and then boom, you get Toy Story. So we use those kind of imagery, but we anchor it into reality, if that makes sense. So I'm not in there flash over substance saying you're all great artists or you all could be creative. It's just like it takes a ton of hard work. I tell them, from my concept of Britfield the Lost Crown, from concept to reality, it took me exactly 10 years. It took me 4 dedicated years to write it, 2,500 hours. I did a pilot program on the third draft with schools. So I would send it out to the schools and then come in and get their feedback. And so, it's a lot of work.
But if it's kind of like anything, if you're praying and if you're feeling prompted in your heart to continue on, God and then enables you, and it starts bearing forth fruit.
Absolutely.
And you're starting to see it in the public school system. If there's people watching right now that say, hey, I'm interested in my school and having you, is there a way that they can contact you? Is it on your website where they can get in touch with you?
It is. It's Britfield.com. And so I think it's info@Britfield.com and reach out to us if you're a teacher. We're actually doing a 16-state, 125-school tour this fall. We're in San Diego now. We're working our way all the way up to Seattle, all the way over to Iowa, all the way back down to Oklahoma.
Wow.
And that's just our fall tour. We're doing 2 more of these in 2020, probably 40 states in total, probably about 15 to 20,000 students when we're done with it. So
you do public school and Christian schools both?
Public, private, charter.
Charters.
Absolutely, yeah. We usually kind of a minimum requirement of at least 80 students because we like that assembly hall. We were doing a few classrooms, but it just doesn't work in the classroom setting. It's too small and it doesn't work.
So would the school boards and school teachers be open to a book like this where, they seem like to be so resistant to have a book of influence to come into their curriculum or for have their students read?
Yeah, I don't think we pitch it as a faith-based book. We just pace it as a great, an exciting adventure novel.
Yes.
That's educational, and it's like so. There's no agenda. There's no agenda to it. There's no witchcraft. There's none of this other garbage that's really, drowning out society. It's just an award-winning book. We've won all these different kinds of awards, which has been wonderful. And so I think that gives us credibility, and it's a good book. And the thing is a lot of authors will charge for this. We're not charging. They'll charge anywhere from $500 to $1,500 to come in for an hour.
Yes.
We're giving it to them for free.
There you go.
So we're not charging to do it. So that's appealing too.
Yeah.
Plus the professional side of it, and as Christians I would say that we need to be at the highest level of professionalism in any industry that we are. I don't often see that. But if you look at our website, that took 12 months to build and put together our website. We have, it's one of the, in my opinion, it's probably the nicest publishing or author's website out there. You got over 400 pictures of Britain. You've got interactive Google Maps of all the different locations that Tom and Sarah go. You've got another 100 pages of information, and I mean, it will blow your mind. And I mean, we hired this company, Studio 98, out of Florida to do it, and I had high expectations, and very rarely are those exceeded. And all of a sudden, they gave it back to me. I said, "This is amazing." I mean, it's like it comes to life, and it's like the website for me is one step removed from a movie, and it's designed that someone could be reading it. A teacher could actually be reading this to their class, and then be going on the website. And then each section, kind of like you have here, and they can open it like so Weatherly, and you can click on Weatherly. I think it's Yorkshire, and then all of a sudden it pops up, and there's a big map, and it's like, okay, there's where Weatherly's located. You can zoom into it.
I'm going to put that map up right behind you so you can see what he's talking about.
It's very cool. Or you can zoom out, and then all of a sudden there's all these pictures. So I talk about the moors, you know what I mean, or I talk about Oxford or Trinity College or London or Hyde Park, and you're like, you kind of get the imagery, but then you go on the website and you're like, wow, there's Hyde Park, and you can see it. You see everything that Tom and Sarah are seeing. You're experiencing it the way they experience it.
So as we've been talking all about the book, why don't you give us a little sneak peek, then kind of the story, let a little bit of out of the bag, per se, and so kind of whet the audience appetite with the book.
Yeah, it's just... Britfield the Lost Crown is the first of a 7-book series.
7 books.
Yeah, so we'll be doing 7 books. I actually finished book 2 last year at 540 pages, if you can imagine. Yeah. So book 1 takes place in England. Book 2 takes place in France. Book 3 will take place in Italy, and then Russia, China, and then we'll come back full circle by book 7 to the United States.
Are they still in that air balloon flying around?
No. No, it's so funny because when I was starting the series, I was thinking of using that balloon as the sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I tell you something, you get so tired of the balloon, and I do everything you can possibly do in a balloon. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's everything from being chased by a helicopter to a balloon carnival to crashing to a lightning storm to you name it. And it's just like finally, like I don't want to give anything away, but I kind of ditch it in London, and that's it. No more balloons.
Read the book to find out. The balloon.
But no more balloons. But it's really exciting. We love for Britfield the Lost Crown. We love the symbolism of the balloon, that sense of freedom, of floating, of imagination, of creativity, of all the things that are kind of associated with the balloon. And you always see one in the air. I mean, how does it make you feel? You don't get like weird. You feel like, oh, that's really cool, or wow, like I wonder what the view's like up there, or just that sense of just being really at God's mercy, because they don't have a lot of control over those things too. So I like that kind of sense of faith with the balloon. But so it takes place in England. It's Tom and Sarah. They're the main characters. What I like about Sarah is she's a very, very strong character. So here I am as a male, and I'm writing about Tom, and the theme is kind of Tom, this royal connection, Britfield Lost Crown. What does it mean?
Okay, so the crown is dealt with the.
I don't want to give anything away, but there's a sliver there. There's a sliver there, and it's really kind of cool because it's very powerful, very profound, and even in book 2 I go deeper. But Tom's kind of street smart, and you were talking about David before, and I thought, gosh, that's really cool. I see a lot of David. I see a lot of Tom. Or David and Tom, because David wasn't necessarily really well educated. You know what I mean? He didn't go to the
out there in the sheep.
Yeah, and he was like the youngest of all, right? The brothers, if I remember, and yet he had the one thing that mattered. He had the courage. Yes. He had the character, and I love that. In fact, I'm getting off topic, but I had a friend that went to Jerusalem a couple of years ago, and he brought me 5 stones from that very river that David was at, which is really cool. So I want to, and but no, so I love that character. So Tom has that kind of street smarts. He has a good heart. Sarah came from an affluent family up in Scotland. She was at the best prep school in Scotland. She speaks 4 languages, and all of a sudden, 2 years prior, her parents were killed in an automobile accident, and lo and behold, here she is at this orphanage.
That's where you bring them together.
That's where they meet. That's where they become best friends. And so what's cool about it is, Sarah's got a bit of an attitude, and I like that. She's kind of got that fiery temper and stuff. And they balance each other. Sometimes Tom will take the lead and let's do this. Sometimes Sarah's like, get over it. Let's go. You know what I mean? So it's really nice to have that kind of balance. And then you have all these. Then they're chased by Detective Gower Stone, who is this renowned detective. I mean, brilliant detective.
And he's chasing them to get them back into the orphanage.
Yeah, because they escaped from the orphanage, and so all of a sudden Gower Stone steps in, and a lot of that you're kind of wondering, like, why in the world are they assigning this detective and then all these police that are involved chasing these kids? And you find out at the end why it's so important. But it is interesting, and he's an amazing detective, and he's never lost a case, and And he's kind of like a difference between James Bond and Sherlock Holmes. He kind of has that kind of like cool, sophisticated, 5 steps ahead of everything. He seems to always be beating them of where they're going and stuff. And then you have Professor Hainsworth, and then you have all these wonderful characters.
So of course, I think all of us are thinking like, where on Netflix can I see this movie? You know, it sounds it sounds so good. Do you have hopes to?
We do. Yeah, we're thinking about 2 to 2.5 years will be the first film.
Okay.
Britfield the Lost Crown. We're already in talks right now, believe it or not. In fact, just last Saturday I was meeting with, I can't give the studios away, but somebody that, it's already in motion. And we know, we've always known that there'll be a film. The 2 questions I get from people that read it, 2 questions is, when is book 2 coming, and will there be a movie? You know what I mean? And so...
but you know, the reason why I say that is that when you go to the media, film or TV programs, just to go back to the core, what you have is friendships, family, loyalty, and courage. Where do you find that? And I think that the world out there, especially our audience, are looking for those type of moral fibers in media that's lost.
Don't be fooled by mainstream media. Don't be fooled by what you're reading or seeing out there, that this is what people want or they're giving them what they want. People are starving for just good stories. People are starving for just good content. I think, in my personal opinion, there's about a 70% gap for books like Britfield the Lost Crown. Imagine that, 70%. What if I told you, and you're into marketing or business, and said, hey, there's a 70% gap in the market for this one thing? And
you say, let's fill the gap.
Yeah, exactly. Let's write a book that's great, that has that kind of quality, and fill the gap. And that's exactly what we're doing. So for us, it's like it's floating out of our hands, because it is. You're right. People are starving for good quality. Are
you a self-publisher, or does somebody?
We have our own publishing company.
Okay.
We're picking up other books that will be part of that publishing.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Have you had a chance to share your vision with other authors to help instill in them, other students and all that, to help fill that gap, that pipeline that we need to be able to bring to this younger society once again, where we can impart those moral and really values that we find through the scriptures?
Yeah, we have. I mean, I'm still being taught, which is great, and then any chance I get to teach or help, I mean, you know, we answer a lot of questions about writing, because there's so many people out there that want to write or are a writer, or how do I get my book published, or how do I get out there, and so we answer a lot of those kind of questions, which I enjoy doing. We've had best-selling authors that have come to us that want to publish now through Devonfield Publishing, which is exciting.
Is that the name of your publishing
Devonfield
company?
Publishing,
Devonfield Publishing.
So we had one he's already sold 1.5 million books, and he wanted us to do his next trilogy of books and stuff, but we can't handle it right now. But we, so we have about potentially 15 to 20 other titles that we're rolling out, but right now we're building our model.
Yes.
So once our model is built, we can just plug something into it. So, I mean, you're looking at, we have databases of 150,000 teachers worldwide, 60,000 church leaders. I've got a team that I've built, 12 people. We've got this machine in place. Right now we're building all the independent bookstores. We're building all the libraries in the United States. And this is just the U.S. So we're just talking about the United States. For me, the United States is really our pilot program. I mean, we're talking global.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping next year at some point that we start our European tour. So
good. One of the things I do want to make mention here, we're going back to your website again, where it's interactive per se. Explorer Club, what is that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that for where kids can go in or teachers can go in? What's that about?
Yeah, I'll say one thing real quick, which is kind of cool, is that Britfield's designed, so we come into the schools, and it's great, and you inspire children and stuff, and we sell quite a few books to the kids, which is great. But we also have our study guide. So we have a study guide, 83-page study guide that's built on national standards. It's already been reviewed by teachers. That's designed so you could teach Britfield and the Lost Crown in school. And this is for me, this is a slam dunk for homeschoolers. But it's designed chapter by chapter, and so we already have that guide. We're offering it to teachers for free, $30 value. And so the idea is you can buy Britfield, and then you can just get the guide. You can actually teach it, over a semester. So that's kind of one of those aspects. The Explorers Club, we're really excited about. Something we've been developing. It's not quite launched yet, but that idea is to keep them engaged, to keep them excited. You come in, you talk about creativity, and it's like, all right, so what do I do? And so we want to design a lot of things like that. Contests, things as simple as like write a 2-page essay essay on the best trip that you've ever taken, and then get a winner and give them, $1,000 scholarship, things like that, to, all kinds of different exercises or tests or things that are just fun and exciting to navigate, Britfield, and not just Britfield, but just adventure, exploration, and creativity.
If you're a mom or dad out there, especially if you're a homeschooler, and you looking for a great resource, go to Britfield.com, click on it, get to know the website, get your kids introduced to it. They're on those tablets and all that all day long, where they can learn and be a part of it. As we're kind of winding down, we have a few more minutes on it. Why don't you go ahead and wrap up? I'd like to go back to your vision.
Sure.
And your passion behind it. Obviously, it's to bring a good resource to the middle school age. And as you mentioned, you're not limited just to middle school. Why don't you share a little bit more about your vision?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful to have a vision. It's wonderful to have dreams. And I remember, as you're saying that, I'm remembering a comment from a pastor that I heard probably years ago, and he said if God fulfills one of your prayers in a decade, consider it a miracle. And I just thought it was really anchoring, because we kind of live in that, God, I want it right now, or God, I want to do this tomorrow, and I guarantee you it's going to take probably 10 times longer than you think it is. But when God plants it, nothing in the world's going to remove it. When God gives you that idea, nothing in the world can take it away. But he is slow. And someone else said that his millstones grind slow, but they grind thin, and they grind good. And so I say that because this has been a long journey. 10 years. You can imagine the amount of faith. Well, I was ready to launch 2 years ago. God's like, nope.
And we live in a society that we want things now.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm like that. I have the worst time with patience, But here you're saying is that you had to go through, I think all of us, like you said, had to go through the grinding process.
The grinder.
But on the other side of it, God brings forth fruit in it. One of the verses I love, I remember learning this as a young man, and yet I struggled with it so much in my life, is delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. Yeah. And sometimes you get that flipped around when your desires become so important that you forget to delight yourself in the Lord. And here we're seeing the fruit of it, and I believe this is just the beginning of the things that God wants to do through not only this work, but other works that God's going to use you, Chad.
Exciting.
You might say, what can I do to help, Chad? Well, I think number one, you could pray for them.
Oh, please.
Continue to pray for the work and the ministry that he's doing here. Is like you said, he has an opportunity to go speak to our young kids out there in the junior high, go to middle school, and have them actually listen to you. That's a miracle and a half right there.
Yeah, true.
And so, I would encourage you also to go to the website, shoot them an email, let them know what you think about it. I know they appreciate the feedback, and he'd be really blessed to have you there. Chad, as you move forward on this, we'll want you to have you back on program, especially when you have the second book come out.
Yeah.
If you get a movie, clips, we would love to have that.
That'd be great.
So I really appreciate you
thank
coming.
you for having me. It's exciting
so
to be here.
on behalf of Chad and myself, my name's Terry, of course. We'll see you next week on Answers for Today.
Or if you have any questions, feel free to mail us at Agape Chapel OC, P.O. Box 4023, Huntington Beach, California, 92647. Or you can email us at aft@agapechapelOC.org. Or visit our website at agapechapelOC.org. Until next time.